Lingchi. On September 17, 1903, 26-year-old Liang Wei from China was accused of treason for secretly aiding rebels plotting against the emperor. His betrayal was considered one of the gravest crimes in the Qing dynasty, punishable only by the most extreme methods. As punishment, Liang faced Lingchi, which means death by 1,000 cuts. The executioners tied him down. One of the executioners pulled out a blade, cutting him slowly and deliberately, hundreds of times. Each slice tore flesh, sending waves of agony through him while the city watched. Hours passed as his blood pooled and muscles cramped under the relentless torment. In the end, his body could endure no more. Liang Wei collapsed, lifeless, leaving one of the most infamous punishments in Chinese history: bamboo torture. On June 4, 1662, a warm, rainy day in Thailand, there was a large rebellion against the regional governor, where the rebels refused to pay oppressive taxes. Villagers rallied to resist conscription. The ruler issued a death warrant for the leader of the rebellion, 37-year-old Anan Chai. His defiance threatened the ruler's authority, and severe punishment was deemed necessary to maintain order. He was subjected to bamboo torture. Anan was immobilized with ropes tied around his limbs over fast-growing shoots. The bamboo pierced through his body as it grew, splitting flesh and piercing bone. He thrashed and screamed, but the relentless growth drove him deeper into agony. Hours later, his body gave out and Anan Chai fell dead, a horrific warning to anyone considering rebellion. Flaying Alive. On March 12, 859 before Common Era, a cold winter morning in the Assyrian capital, rumors about a rebellious city governor began to spread. Turns out he had resisted the king's orders, withheld taxes, and refused to surrender to Assyrian forces. His defiance threatened the stability of the empire. The king ordered his capture to make an example out of him. He was sentenced to flaying alive, a punishment designed to terrorize the public. After being captured and tied up, the executioners, armed with knives, started peeling strips of skin from his body, while Tarku screamed in agony. Blood ran freely, and the crowd watched helplessly as a symbol of absolute authority unfolded. Hours later, his body could endure no more, and Tarku died, leaving a chilling lesson in obedience and fear. Death by elephant. On October 2, 1578, 32-year-old Chandra Dev from India led a rebellion against the Mughal emperor, refusing to pay tribute and rallying villagers to resist imperial rule. His defiance was considered a serious threat to the emperor's authority. Captured, he was brought to the capital square for death by elephant. Chandra was thrown into the animal's habitat. The massive elephant stomped on his legs, lifted him with its trunk, and slammed him to the ground repeatedly. Bones shattered. Flesh tore, and his screams filled the air. After relentless crushing, Chandra Dev could no longer move or cry out. He lay still, lifeless, a terrifying public demonstration of imperial power. Keelhauling. On July 9, 1650, 28-year-old sailor Peter Janzoon from the Netherlands disobeyed orders during a critical naval maneuver, endangering the ship and crew. Naval discipline was strict, and his punishment needed to deter others. Peter was sentenced to keelhauling. He was tied and thrown overboard. While holding his breath, he was dragged under the ship. Jagged wood and barnacles tore at his skin, bruising muscles and scraping flesh. Water slammed against him, choking and dragging him. After being pulled repeatedly, Peter Janzoon could fight no more. He sank beneath the waves, dead, a brutal lesson for the crew. Burnt at the stake. In 1431, 19-year-old Joan of Arc from France was captured by English allies and accused of heresy and cross-dressing while leading French troops in battle. Her charges were considered crimes against both church and state. Joan was sentenced to burn at the stake. She was tied to a wooden stake surrounded by stacked firewood for burning at the stake. Two men holding torches lit the firewood. Flames roared from her feet up, blistering skin and searing flesh. Smoke choked the square as her screams echoed. Joan's body eventually succumbed to the flames, and she died, her courage transforming her execution into a symbol of martyrdom. Scaphism. On April 19, 976 Common Era, the Persian kingdom had uncovered a plot of treason, a trusted official accused of aiding foreign enemies and undermining the throne. Such a betrayal could not go unanswered. The punishment chosen was Scaphism, one of the most feared sentences of the empire. 31-year-old Bahram was forced into a narrow wooden rowboat with venomous scorpions, his arms and legs pinned, leaving him defenseless. The air filled with the buzz of insects, swarming over his exposed body, stinging and biting without pause. While the insects fed on his flesh, scorpion venom coursed through him as he twisted helplessly, his strength draining with every hour. By the day's end, Bahram's body failed, leaving only silence in the vessel. His death stood as a warning etched into memory, a lesson in loyalty and fear. Boiled alive. On August the 22nd, 1450, 23-year-old Robert Weichman from England was convicted of poisoning a local lord to seize his property, a crime considered among the most heinous of the period. As punishment, Robert was sentenced to boiling alive. He was lowered into a giant cauldron of scalding water. The heat enveloped him instantly, burning his flesh as he thrashed and screamed. The steam rose, and the crowd watched in horror as the boiling water consumed him completely. Eventually, Robert Weichman sank lifeless into the cauldron, his death remembered as one of the most extreme punishments in medieval England. Skull crushing. On November 1st, 1564, the square of Lisbon filled with anxious spectators. The crown had announced the punishment of a man whose violence had shaken the region, a leader of an armed band that murdered a royal tax collector. The crown wanted a punishment that would prevent similar uprising, and so the court declared his crime especially violent, and he was sentenced to skull crushing. The condemned, 46-year-old Miguel Duarte, was brought forward in chains. In the execution square, a weighted iron cap was positioned over his head, and then gradually tightened with a handle, applying crushing force to the skull. He struggled as his bones started cracking. The pressure caused catastrophic trauma to his brain. After a short, agonized period, he lost consciousness, and then life, his body finally still. Sawing. On May 14, 1482, 34-year-old Alvaro Rios from the Iberian Peninsula was found guilty of treason and was accused of passing military plans to an invading force. The local lord sought a punishment that would mark the crime for all to see. Alvaro was sentenced to sawing, a method attested in medieval times. He was bound upside down in the town square, while a saw was applied in a controlled, judicial manner. When the saw was halfway through, Alvaro fought and cried out. Eventually, he was overcome by blood loss, shock, and collapse, and his heart stopped as he was split in half. His death was aimed at preventing traitors during a period of war, and was recorded as one of the harshest executions in history. If you want more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the Paint Reaper YouTube channel.